Well, first off, thank you everyone for joining, and happy Valentine's Day. I hope you have some great plans later on this evening. But yeah, we can kick off your Valentine's Day with lots of warm, fuzzy feelings. Okay, so 5 ways to fall in love with your FM data in 30 minutes. All right, let's go. So the user cases are coming, I promise. But I just wanted to take a little time here to set the scene. So we speak to very few built environment professionals that don't think that data could be working harder for them. Luckily for them, that's exactly what we do here at Datore. We help those responsible for FM and their organizations get the maximum impact from the data that is available to them. Give me a second. Whether they have an in-house data team with limited access, and they always find that their asks seem to take a while, or they don't have a data team at all. So they have to do it themselves by logging into a number of systems and then exporting manually. Or they have data capabilities, but they're just too busy. They're too busy reacting to daily operations that they never really scratch the surface of the capabilities of the data that they have. And they all have one thing in common. They are leaving tons of impact on the table. Some have great people, others have amazing technology, and some even have both. But the blocker we see more often than not is that they're missing a plan, a repeatable and evidenceable methodology that goes to delivering guaranteed impact in a short term with exponential values over time. Well, the solution, very briefly, that's exactly what Datore Analytics impact methodology is. So it's an 8-stage impact guaranteeing methodology that takes you from raw data to tactical deliverable measures and actions to delivering that strategic business value. And it also has a focus on personal impact. So we designed this off the back of hundreds of successful implementations to help our customers remain hyper-focused on how that data, how they can maximize the impact of their data in their business or in their functions, from project inspections right through to continual iterations that push the boundaries of how much value can be delivered from a single project. But also, and more importantly, is how we continually evidence that impact and empower individuals to build better business cases, gain the buy-ins for change, get a seat at the top table, and then achieve their personal goals. But more on that later. So the methodology. There are so many angles that we could come at this from. But for this webinar, I thought it'd be fun to talk about the 5 ways to fall in love with your FM data in the context of the infinite impact cycle part of our methodology. Now, the top 3 that you see there, that's around setting the data. So if I just go back to the previous slide for a second, that's more technology focused. So that's the much more technology focused. Now, for many of you, as many of you know, I'm an analyst at heart, right? I love talking about the first 3 steps. However, you'll be very pleased to hear that I'll spare you that today. Although, if there is anyone who is interested, do let me know, because I'll bore you with them anytime, anywhere. But all you really need to know for the context here is that access is about getting access to the right data, to answer the right questions, and to deliver the maximum impact. Amalgamate. It's about bringing the data together in a centralized location in order to ask those complex questions of multiple data sets in a single place, in a single query, and increase that visibility to the business users or to those building the dashboards and reporting tools. Ask is about putting that hard work up front to ensure the initial right questions are identified and answered. Those key performance indicators are available in real time and easy to access, be it that through the mobiles, the tablets, or attachments on an email. Okay, so here we go. Now we get into what we call the infinite impact cycle. So this part of the methodology, as the more perceptive amongst you will have already guessed, is an ongoing iterative cycle of improvement. And it's fundamental to getting impact early, but also continuing to push for more and more value over time, getting you seen, listened to, and more importantly, heard. So phase one is the analysis. And as the name suggests, we help our customers move past monitoring and using data for data's sake. And the more into that world of the so what. So what my energy consumption at site A is 2 times higher than site B. What I need to understand why, because actually at both sites, they both have a similar operations, they are a similar size, and better yet, what then can be done to reduce its consumption. So we do this, so we do this using a combination of human and machine intelligence. And we are very lucky to have a team of incredibly talented analysts and developers whose sole job it is to deep dive into the data, to cross-reference, harness, where applicable, AI and ML technologies, and to deliver those insights that will save our customers wasted time, resource, and money. And it was during this phase, it was during this analysis phase, where we helped a tier 1 UK supermarket get granular and fall in love with their energy data. So like most organizations with hundreds of national dispersed supermarkets scattered in and around UK, Scotland, and Ireland, the energy data was both key, but it was also particularly problematic all at once. Now, what you will be seeing on screen is a walkthrough of the analytics that supported the user cases. Okay. So I will play this. All right. So on first look, the data being captured wasn't particularly valuable. They were able to access the half-an-hour data from their energy supplier via the spreadsheets. However, they weren't able to understand the consumption within the given areas of the store or at a sub-metering level to really understand what each one was empowering. And as a result, they were missing out on invaluable government-funded opportunities, as well as the ability to impact their energy consumption in any real material way. The energy supplier was particularly unhelpful and could only offer readings for the entire building, which was not nearly enough to identify the problem areas. Equally, no one was really sure what sub-meter powered what, so they weren't able to attain the consumption for the different asset types either, like their lighting, their HVACs, the refrigerations, or the refilling stations. They did have, however, a legacy Modbus sub-metering network in play, but with no real access to the data. So firstly, our team of experts, we were able to access that legacy sub-metering systems in efforts to utilize what they already had and transform it into SQL. This not only meant now that they were able to access the super granular data from very specific areas of their stores, but the SQL translation meant that we were able to actually analyze it. That analysis led to unprecedented views of their national energy consumption, and it formed the backbone of a suite of recommendations and changes that have continuously driven down costs since the day we engaged. Their internal teams are now able to access that data, meaning that as a collective, we now combine the understanding of their business with our understanding of the FM space to continually deliver impact through analysis 2 years on. And for me, my key takeaway here is to get granular, right? Is to get granular on your energy data. Energy data at a site level is no longer as useful. It doesn't give us anything other than the consumption at a high level. The obstacles may seem insurmountable, right? But with the right people, the right skills, they can usually be overcome. And the pot of gold at the end of that energy analytics rainbow can be massive. For this particular project, we uncovered approximately $500,000 of savings across the 2 years. The second part of the infinite impact cycle is appraise. Of course, we all know what appraise means, but in this context, I'm talking about appraising your approach early and regularly. Not early enough to, correct the course if necessary. And this section, or this stage rather, really came into focus during our recent project with one of the UK's largest guest service providers. And like in almost all people businesses, they had a challenge around employee turnover, which of course impacts service levels, budgets, reputations in equal measure. So our initial brief was to work with the HR leaders and to help uncover and understand any trends in the historical levers data. However, upon reaching the appraise stage, we realized we just didn't have the full picture. We weren't really covering the real sentiment behind what we were being asked. If we were able to use that initial HR data, but we also connect it and bring in performance data, learning and development data, sicknesses, training, we were able to build a profile that could help identify at-risk individuals and in turn create a proactive strategy to retain. A strategy based on health, well-being, continuous learning, and employee engagement, and tying that as well into the employee surveys, enabled us to really understand the sentiments. It really enabled us to get beneath the bonnet as to the reasons why people were leaving. They were being captured, but it wasn't really being why people were leaving, for a better job, for a better pay, etc., etc. So what started as why is this happening, through a process of analysis and appraising, quickly became not only to why is this happening, or this is happening, or that is happening, but also it now moved us into a space where we could answer, okay, so this is how we are going to tackle it. And there were a number of insights driven out, as being shown here. There were massive ties to the amount of training done, and massive differentiators between the amount of training done last year versus the amount of training done this year. Now, was that as a result, has that massively impacted the number, reduced the amount of employees in turn? over time, we'll find out and we'll move that client into the next stage. But yeah, that overall assumption in terms of what was done could be attained and pertained back to the number of trainings. So, problem solving, making it right, that was a big one for operational excellence. We were looking at much more relationship management when it comes to the leaderships. Those were the key elements in terms of the training that was done. So career development, leadership, operational excellence. But for me, the key takeaway here, or for this particular user case, was that proactive retention has to be the new recruitment policy. As we all know, good people are hard to find. And at about 35% of the 35% of the average salary, they're also expensive to recruit. So holding on to gold that already sits in your business is essential. If we look at a business of 1,000 employees with a turnover of 15%, so that's about 150 employees, by saving 30% of them, so 45 of those potential leavers, you're already in the hundreds of thousands in recruitment savings. And the project paid for itself 5 times over. And the service and your service levels were taking less of a hit, and the company culture went through the roof. So the next stage of our methodology is articulate. It seems so simple, but this one is my favorite. Articulating in our models is about articulating our methodology is about using data to give people a voice. It's about proving and disproving hypotheses with a view to building rock-solid, data-backed business cases for change. It's about showing up to that boardroom with a smile on your face and a glint in your eye and being able to articulate your position with confidence. And articulate is how we furthered an energy management consulting firm to prove that applying a varying pricing structure in a PPA or a power purchase agreement would save their clients hundreds and thousands on their energy bills. And what that meant was incorporating time-based models or tiered pricing structures. And through scenario planning, through developing what-if scenario models, we were able to demonstrate energy savings in monetary figures and the importance of having the right contextual flexibility to fit the energy reduction aims. And we needed to demonstrate the importance of not just knowing where and when you use the energy, but equally how much you can save by having the right contractual flexibility. You may have a 10 or 20 year PPA, and it may give you that budget certainty, but at what cost? If your energy costs are feeding into your gross margins, you could be creating a major long-term problem. And so we built a model, and I shall play that. And so we built a model that took built a number of models actually that took all of the monthly invoices over the last 5 years, and we reconciled them against the would-be cost, or how they reference it, the true cost, by calculating the various time-sensitive DUOS unit charges. So that's the varying unit measure, the unit rates per kilowatt hours against actual consumption, so on top of and aligning that with the billed metered consumption, to calculate what their clients would have saved based on the different contractual models. They were able to then go to their clients and their stakeholders, and they could demonstrate how they could save them in this case, over 600,000 a year in overbuild, and not a year, sorry, across the last 5 years. And that equated to 2% of their energy consumption per annum. And better yet, we continued to save year on year, having now developed an automated model or models, or what we call scenario plans, enabling them to perform invoice reconciliations much more frequently. Previously, they were looking at just reconciling it annually. However, having the ability to be able to reconcile monthly enabled them to go back with evidence-backed calculations to their suppliers to either claim back on the or claim back through reconciliation costs, or better yet, monitor in real time. In fiscal year 2018, it was about 135,000 that they saved. 2019, 118,000. In 2022, perhaps in 2020, typo, it was 59,000. And in 2021, which was their biggest year of energy cost savings, it was 100,000. So in total, just actually, maths being correct, is actually almost 700,000 that they managed to save over the last 5 years and reconcile. So the message here for me, or at least for myself for this particular the user case, is that changing anything within an organization is hard. But with the right data, analyzed in the right way, and built, most importantly, into a compelling story with monetary-backed figures, it then becomes much easier. You know, we're replacing those conjectures and hearsays with facts, monetary figures, and more importantly, the projected cost savings that could make it a whole heap harder to say no, right? All right, so we're nearly there. So this is the fourth part of our process, and this is authenticate. So now, once we've got buy-in from the leadership, we now need to get on and get that proof. It is authenticate to us, and as part of our methodology, is a bottoms-up review of the project to date, where our original hypothesis is correct. You know, what can we tweak? What have been the results? And how can we push for more? What answers are being asked that we're not able to answer yet because of the so whats? Because we're constantly asking more of our data, asking more insights, and building it into an iterative cycle. And the authenticate is, it was during this particular stage that we helped a tier 1 FM service provider optimize their workspace and really understand the sentiments of their staff with regards to well-being and productivity. Early on, we made a lot of assumptions. We being the royal we, so us and the client. So early on, we made a lot of assumptions about the temperature, the levels of air quality, well, perhaps less about the air quality, definitely about desk arrangements and the flexible working space, the natural light, the noise levels. And so we wanted to initially evidence and assess their impact on the productivity of over 300 office-based staff. Those assumptions were actioned. And along with our champion, we used early analytics to get buy-in from senior leaders, getting access to the necessary budgets to do a full rollout. And these were the findings. And so therefore, from here, we were able to from here, we began the authentication process. So using near real-time analytics on how those changes were implemented and how it affected the day-to-day in the office, the productivity, tying it into the employee satisfaction surveys, looking at the employee churn rates, and their sentiments based on those surveys, and much more, we demonstrated huge successes in certain changes. Others, however, needed a bit of work. We weren't getting the results that we were expecting. But with the backing of data, we were able to avoid guesswork and we were able to iterate accordingly. The authentication process not only allowed us to be more proactively monitor and share our successes with the senior leadership across the organization, but also understand where the future investments needed to be, where we could get the most out of the investments, the most on the return on investments for the coming year. Now, for me, the biggest takeaway here is you can't underestimate the power of being able to evidence the impact of what you're doing in real time. And by implementing a continuous iteration cycle like we do with our customers, you're always in a position to authenticate and communicate the impact of your project, right? So it's a win-win-win. Right. And so here we are, our not so final destination. So it's augment. So typically, this is where we start to look at ways that we can increase the impact of an already successful project. And this often means bringing internal data sets, so augmenting with third-party data sets or predicting and automating using AI and ML technologies. And it was here in this stage where we helped a national total FM provider start their journey from moving from reactive to predictive, and then through to prescriptive maintenance through the addition of data sets and implementing ML technologies. Now, having gone through the previous stages, we were at a point where we had already attained valuable insights and generated a return on investment of, I think it was 184,000 through that initiative. But what we wanted to move forward was looking at automated improvements in their, by implementing the already automated improvements in their work order management systems, utilizing their quality-driven dashboards, and look at could we start applying condition-based maintenance models on their existing data sets. And this is where we were introduced to this model, where this was, potential failure curve. So could it be applied to their data sets to define the percentage health of their assets? So here, we didn't have the total lifespan of each asset type. So we had to base the timescales on the work order management data. So we identified the first initial job carried out, and that was the starting point. That was failure start. We then took the total number of jobs to date, or more accurately, when we got historical work order data from retired assets. And then we took the total number of jobs and aligned it to the potential failure curve, giving us a percentage health of each asset type. Okay, so now just a note to the wise, right? Actual condition-based maintenance uses sensors and data with preset conditions or thresholds that, when met, would signal maintenance is needed. And this is something that we're working on, but I've only ever really known this on very large assets like motors. For the majority of asset types, we took this model and it was about establishing a baseline of a known good or healthy asset, calculating a normal distribution based on the number of work orders, and then set warning levels and notifications that would be triggered whenever the data deviated from that baseline. And so for our client, however, I only had this in last year's data to calculate a normal distribution. So we've applied that concept and we followed that on into an 8 to 10 year asset cycle, depending on, obviously, the asset type. Now, just for mindful of time, I'm going to skip this and move into the key takeaway here. So for me, just because your project is producing impact, it doesn't mean it's finished. And this is the part of the infinite impact cycle where you're continuously asking questions. These questions are where the golden nuggets are. And these initiatives is going to ramp up the impact that you're providing to your business. And this is the part of the process that allows us to move beyond the original scope and moving, in this case, purely from looking at reactive maintenance and entering into a brave new world of predictive maintenance. There's still a lot of work to go there, but we've got multiple cycles to go into. So that's it, folks. That is the 5 ways to fall in love with your FM data. And a quick look at the cycle, this infinite impact cycle is part of the methodology that we use to guarantee success by scrutinizing the impact on everything that we do. You know, the process is designed to access impact as quickly as possible, getting the necessary buy-in, bringing the right people on the journey with you, evidencing your success at every junction, and then continually push for better data utilizations. No access to data? Let's get you access. No meaningful analytics? Let's answer those business questions. Struggling with senior leadership buy-in? Well, here's an incredible data-backed story to tell. Not able to assess the impact of a project? No problem. We built in those measures from the very start. Finally, nailed a project? Great, perfect. Let's look at how we can start reducing the amount of manual time and effort it is taking by looking at cutting-edge technology. So time's up. We only wanted to take up 30 minutes of your time on this day of romance. But if any of this has been particularly interesting, or you wanted to review much more detail some of the case studies that I've shown throughout the way, we could go into we're looking to go into a much more deep dive on each single user case over the next series of webinars. And I would love one of them to be yours. So if you're happy to give us a few hours of your time, we'll build you a completely free, proof of concept. My only stipulation is I want to talk about it on here at some point this year. So, if that is of interest, either drop your name in the chats now, or reply to our follow-up email, or through any of the communications that you see on the screen, or book a call with us, or book a call with me directly. So that's it. Thank you so much for your time. The follow-up emails will be sent at some point this week. I hope you have a fantastic day, and yeah, happy Valentine's Day, guys.